I spent the last week using the newly focusable foundry weapons in PvP, and in this video, I'm going to show you exactly which weapons are worth your time, starting with Ammit. The Ammit Ar2 is one of the weapons that is constantly bouncing in and out of the top 10 trials weapons each weekend. It's easy to see why with looking at its very solid stats, perks, and weapon model. But what perks should you be running on Ammit? Well, I would focus on range, stability, and recoil control when it comes to the secondary perks. And that looks something like a range masterwork or stability masterwork, arrowhead break, hammer forged rifling, small bore, or extended barrel, and Rico, high cal, or armor piercing rounds. Specifically, arrowhead break, Rico rounds, and a range masterwork. For the third and fourth column perks, I would go with dynamic sway reduction and Tab the Shredder for the immense amount of consistency they can provide. So we have the perfect Ammit Ar2, but how does it stack up against some of the other perfect auto rifles? Unsurprisingly, really well, with it trading blows with the other top precision frames when it comes to stats, while also being the only craftable precision frame auto rifle. So I think Ammit Ar2 is the best precision frame auto rifle in the game, other than maybe Breakneck, as I really haven't tried it, but just looking at it on paper, I still think Ammit will be better. As for how Ammit actually performed when using it for this review, I was impressed at how consistently I was managing to outgun SMGs. Obviously, at point blank range I still got completely obliterated, but at mildly further ranges, I won a lot of SMG fights I was not expecting to. As always, going up against a good player peak shooting with a pulse rifle and or a hand cannon was bad news bears, but in general, it was fun and surprisingly effective. The same can be said about our next weapon, Floritra 59. Floritra is a part of the very cringe, but also very good rapid-fire sidearm frame that hasn't seen a lot of additions over the years, with it only having 5 sidearms, including Floritra. But how does Floritra hold up when it's paired against those other sidearms? Well, before we go any further, just keep in mind I'm not a sidearm guy, never have been, but I did do my best to educate myself for this review. With that said, it's pretty solid, with it holding up pretty well against every sidearm except for the Ron sidearm, Mikhail's Revenge. But that is a kinetic, and you do need to step into the Root of Nightmares to obtain it. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not willingly doing that anytime soon. So, keeping in mind, there is a better option that can synergize with my favorite playstyle, Spider-Man with a wave-frame grenade launcher. Floritra holds up pretty well in its own archetype. But how are the perks? Well, like I said before, I have pretty limited knowledge when it comes to sidearms. So if you're an avid sidearm user that disagrees with anything I'm about to say, then I would love it if you could correct me and tell me why you disagree in the comments below. Now, with my limited knowledge, I'm going to recommend focusing on stability and range when it comes to secondary perks, as this weapon already has pretty solid handling. And to achieve that, we're going with a range or stability masterwork, hammer forged rifling, small bore or corkscrew rifling, and Rico, armor piercing, or high caliber rounds. For the third column perks, we're going with Pugilist, Threat Detector, and Zen Moment, from worst to best in that order. I went with Pugilist as I felt like I was meleeing a lot of people when I was using this gun for my review, and it definitely could have helped out. Threat Detector for the increased everything when you're in close proximity of other players, as I felt I was very close quite often. And finally, Zen Moment for the amazing amount of consistency it can provide. For the fourth column perks, I'm going to recommend Swashbuckler and Moving Target. Swashbuckler, because as I said before, you're in melee range quite a bit, and a Swashbuckler Pugilist rule would also be very nice. And Moving Target is just an amazing perk on every weapon I've ever had it on. As for how well the sidearm actually did while I was reviewing it, well, I was extremely impressed once I got used to it, semi-consistently gunning down shotgun apes and hand cannon users alike. But do I think it's worth your Gunsmith engrams? Well, yeah, this is the weapon I'm going to be spending my Gunsmith engrams on this season, until I get that Swashbuckler Pugilist roll. But if you're like me, and sidearms aren't generally your speed, then our next weapon just might be for you. Syncopation 53. Syncopation is a craftable kinetic adaptive frame pulse rifle originally added in the Witch Queen DLC. It has amazing stats when compared to the other pulse rifles in its archetype. It also has some very solid perks that we are about to go over, starting with the secondary perks, where our main focus is on range, stability, and recoil control. For the masterwork, I would go with either range or stability. For the barrel, you can go with either arrowhead break or extended barrel based on the amount of recoil control you feel you need. For the mag, we're going with high cal, armor piercing, or Rico rounds. Now for the important perks. I'm going with either Zen Moment or Moving Target in the third column, and Head Seeker or maybe even Headstone in the fourth column. Both Zen Moment and Moving Target are both amazing consistency perks. I personally prefer Zen Moment, but you can't go wrong either way. Head Seeker is another amazing consistency perk, and is what I've been using on almost all my pulse rifles, including Syncopation recently. But Headstone is interesting for res blocking in trials, so if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, then try it out. But I think most players will find the highest level of success with Head Seeker. Now that we have the perks out of the way, I want to mention how this pulse performs in Checkmate. It is extremely strong. mostly due to the fact that adaptive frame pulse rifles are significantly better in checkmate due to the reduced time to kill, and syncopation is the strongest adaptive frame pulse rifle in the game. This isn't to say that syncopation isn't good in the regular Crucible. Most of the footage you've seen is from the Iron Banner of regular Crucible mode, and it still feels great. But seriously, if you're ever thinking about jumping into a checkmate trials weekend, or just checkmate control, I would highly recommend taking a syncopation 53 with you. Now, with that out of the way, our last weapon holds a very special place in my heart, and that is Katana 57. Katana was one of the first weapons I ever reviewed on this channel almost 2 years ago. And back then, my verdict was that I think you have one of the best hand cannons in the game. And I think that is true now more than ever. With the recent changes to zoom and rangefinder destroying some of our old favorite energy hand cannon god rolls like rangefinder palindrome or rangefinder exalted truth. Now, neither of these weapons are bad, they still have other perk rolls, and there are some new contenders like the reprised Nation of Beasts and Apocalypse Iteration. But for me, there's not a single energy 140 that comes close to Katana in today's meta, with its amazing weapon feel and perks. Let's talk about some of those amazing perks. Focusing on range while also keeping stability in mind. And that's going to look something like a range masterwork, small bore, hammer forged rifling, or full bore, and accurized rounds. For the third column perks, I'm going with Eye of the Storm, as it provides an increasing bonus to handling and a reduction to accuracy cone growth the lower your health becomes. I think it's one of the best perks in the game, and the fact that it's in the third column here is amazing. Both Rapid Hit, a perk that provides an increasing buff to stability and reload speed for each precision shot, and Heating Up, a perk that grants increased stability, recoil direction, and accuracy cone growth on weapon kill, are good perks. But I just don't think they're quite as good as Eye of the Storm. For the fourth column, I'm going to recommend Opening Shot, Time Payload, and Moving Target from best to worst in that order. Opening Shot is an S tier perk for the amount of aim assist and range it provides on the first shot of an engagement, and Time Payload could be just as solid for the increased flinch and increased damage fall off it provides. However, I do understand that some people don't like Time Payload as it can lead to trading out more than usual, and in that case, I would just go with Opening Shot. I seriously cannot emphasize enough how good this hand cannon really is. I know it doesn't quite stack up to a couple other energy 140 stat-wise, but Palindrome is no longer obtainable, and most god rolls still have rangefinder on them, a perk that no longer provides any benefit to damage fall off, reduces your FOV, and provides aim assist. Exalted Truth is no longer an obtainable adept weapon, meaning most people have the rangefinder adept god roll and don't have alternative perks. And even if you did farm for the alternative roll, like myself, it still only rolls with Killing Wind in the left column, a B tier perk at best, and when we look at the new 140s, we have Apocalypse Iteration that does have the benefit of Keep Away Eye of the Storm, an amazing perk combo, but has the horrible 55 range stat, keeping most players from using it. Nation of Beast is different in the fact that it is craftable with amazing perks and very solid stats, but I don't know why, but I've just never been able to really enjoy using it. It always feels like I'm fighting the weapon. But using Katana in the game with the right perks makes it really hard to want to use these other hand cannons, and I'm shocked I don't see more people using it on the day-to-day. If you have extra Gunsmith engrams or any at all, I would seriously recommend trying to get that 5 out of 5 Katana roll. You will not be disappointed.